apply each and every one of those questions to your customer segments and to your product, and see where it takes your market research planning. After watching this video, you will get some new ideas of customer segments you might not have thought about, and you might even realize some truths about your customer segments without market research. By the end of this video, I hope you will get new ideas for your customer segments and new ideas on which ones you need to research during customer development interviews. And really watch for the final question, which might unhinge a great secret about successful startups and their market niche. Number 1, look for the customer with the most pressing need. I really love this meme from Y Combinator Startup School, where even a brick would suffice to get this fire out. This man is a symbol of really pressing need. Since many of you are doing AI services nowadays, let's assume that you are doing a hypothetical AI assistant for entrepreneurs. You can think about a personal assistant or coding assistant or sales assistant or marketing assistant maybe, or even AI product manager, whatever you may like. In your hypothetical AI assistant example, people who already have problems in their business have a more pressing need than people who are just looking for some opportunities to expand their business. For example, if a person is just starting in a new market and they have 0 leads, they have a pressing need for clients, but they don't yet have a pressing need for operational tasks in that market since they have no clients. Number 2, the better customer segment is obviously the one who pays more. And this is why a lot of startups do B2B versus B2C. I believe around 80% of all YC startups in the later batches do some kind of B2B products, just for the reason of higher revenue per client, but also due to the fact that YC has a lot of business connections and your startup gets better value with each business connection, especially if it's B2B. In plain language, if you are a hypothetical YC startup and you meet a lot of other YC startups, you can sell your product to them and already be successful. Well, of course, both B2B startups and B2C startups are successful, but this is just a good place to check if your customer has enough money to pay for your services. For example, this is a problem for agencies like mine while working with the early stage startups, because if you are an early stage startup, you have likely not yet attracted funding or attracted very little funding, and you just don't have money to attract external consultants. Number 3, you've seen this framework on many pitch decks, like TAM, TOM, SOM, and all those fancy abbreviations. This means that you are calculating the potential size of your market and you calculate your potential share in that market. And the reason why VCs love that is that it's ingrained into the VC model that there is such a little chance for success that if you are the successful startup, your market and your revenue better be large enough to cover for all the losses of all those unsuccessful startups. And your total available and total obtainable market needs to be large enough. So if you are looking at 2 customer segments which are quite different, for example, you are making one assistant for the European market and one for the US market. Just calculate your market by multiplying the population, not all the population, but just the population of your potential clients by the amount of money they usually pay per client in this market, and what you are likely to realize about the US versus Europe is that the European customers, they tend to pay less per customer just because the salary per person in those countries is likely to be less than in the US. So this fact works practically across the board with some potential exceptions, but just think about your total market. With our potential AI assistant, your task could be the choice between one type of businesses versus the other type of businesses. For example, agency owners versus startup founders, or for example, a coding assistant versus a sales assistant. Just try to calculate how big each profession is and how much money those people are willing to pay, or for starters, how much money those people earn cumulatively as a profession. It would be very interesting to compare how much all the developers in the world earn, or for example, all the developers in the US earn versus all of the salespeople in the same region. That would be a nice exercise about total available market, and total obtainable market is your share versus the competitions. This usually depends on how fragmented your market is and how many competitors there are. Counterintuitively, if there is one big competitor, they are already sitting there, and it's really hard for you as a new company to take that place. However, if there are many competitors, like 5 companies with 10 to 15% share each, there might be more room for you to actually compete in that market, especially if you have large resources. So think about this market bubble versus this market bubble, because that's what venture capitalists do. Number 4, not only bigger revenue, but also faster revenue matters. If you really took in my B2B versus B2C example, and your industry is sales driven, like you really sell your product in one-to-one conversations, which might be the case for your potential AI assistant, you just think, okay, I need to attract the largest B2B client there is. And trust me, many startups think like that and try to attract big, fancy corporate names as their clients. The one problem you might have with those clients, however, is the length of the deal cycle. If your client is a very large company with a lot of departments, a lot of vice presidents, and a long chain of contractor agreements, the salespeople might spend 6 to 12 months, and sometimes even more, on attracting that deal and coming from the first contact to the actual deal with that client. If you are a startup and testing your hypothesis really fast, do you really have half a year to a year and potentially more until your first revenue? This is really an open question. And even if you do have some funding and you can wait, think about the feedback cycle as well. If you are signing that contract in the 6 months time frame, during that time frame you are not getting feedback about your product usage because there is no usage. And looking at the smaller companies that are more agile and the founder can sign the deal with you directly and faster in several days, not months, might be a good place for you to start and then climb up the ladder of bigger B2B clients. Number 5, is that client already using this type of solutions? I've recently come across this with my B2C product, which is a community for entrepreneurs. If a person has no habit of solving their problems through community, they might not be interested in that type of instrument just because of who they are and their personality, and has nothing to do with your instrument. Talking about our potential B2B assistant, think about the groups of customers who already automate their business and who are open to trying new solutions. I'm sure you know about the tech adoption curve. And for example, the segment of late adoption might be not a good place to start. Think about how they solve similar problems. For example, if you are building a solution for personal assistant, think about them doing their accounting. How do they do accounting? How do they sign documents? Do they use cutting-edge services for that? Or do they use Google Sheets, Excel? If they do use the tables, might be hard to convince them. So in this regard, you are definitely looking for early adopters. Number 6, do I have experience with that type of client, with that type of person, with that usage pattern? For example, in my past career as a corporate finance analyst, I worked, believe it or not, at an industry plant where people are really old school. And with that experience, I do have some understanding of those people. If you do not have that experience, it might be hard for you to build some solutions for industrial plant. It could be your choice, definitely, to go and study how those people think, their mindset, their approach to choosing services, but it might take effort on your part. Maybe you have more experience with Gen Z entrepreneurs, with the creator economy. Maybe it's much easier for you to start working with them. Number 7, how approachable those customers are. Like a simplistic example, but how easily do those customers reply your messages on LinkedIn, WhatsApp? How easy is it to find them on social media at all? Or maybe they are this type of busy person who have 3 assistants and you need to book a meeting with them a month in advance. If your customer segment is just not approachable, again, think about it. In case of a large B2B client, that's just your way of doing things. You contact their assistant, you book that appointment in advance, 2, 3, 4 weeks. You prepare for it a lot, and then you just sell for a large amount, like 100K. Think about other way of approaching them. For example, another messenger could work better. As easy as that sometimes. Use WhatsApp instead of Telegram, or WeChat for some Asian clients, or maybe Facebook Messenger. But if they are just not approachable altogether, think twice if you need to work with them, or maybe you can find a group that's either easygoing or better paid. Number 8, continuing the previous topic, does your effort to attract that client as a lead match the potential profitability of that lead? How cheap is it potentially to attract this audience? You know that students are usually easy to attract. And you know that beginner entrepreneurs are also easy to attract, but they have little or no money. But this is how the VC model works. Big accelerators and funds, for example, Y Combinator, attract a lot of those people who might not have resources, but they have their mind and the desire to build and the interest in this topic. Y Combinator creates a ton of beautiful free resources like Startup School in order to get access to those founders and monetize on those they invest in. So all this audience is not monetized with the resources that they get, but they are monetized as the funnel for the Y Combinator investments. If you have an opportunity to attract a large non-paying audience, just think about a business model you can monetize them with. Maybe you can attract advertisers to your model, practically to any business model. For example, maybe you can create a free assistant but put advertising on it. Maybe you can get someone else to pay for those people. For university students, their university can pay for them. For startups, the VC fund can pay for them. For general public, advertisers can pay for them. Partnerships can pay for them. Beautiful business model. Number 9, does your product and customer segment have an opportunity to go viral? Going viral, except for the hype and for the attention, essentially is something that people either do together with other people or are willing to share with other people. The simplest example of a viral job is Zoom. You go into a Zoom call with someone. So you give them a link, and pretty much this is how new people find out about products for video calls. Another story is when you develop a product, people are willing to share with other people. Again, the example of Y Combinator, they develop their free resources for startup founders to share with other founders and to create more awareness about Y Combinator. If you see a customer segment that is especially willing to share, this might be a good segment at least to consider. And now, our final question. Number 10. I've recently come across an early presentation from DoorDash where they are talking about the delivery market in Silicon Valley back in 2014, I believe, where they say that there are delivery services, but 70% of people in the United States live where those services do not deliver. So there was this delivery market, and people were aware about food delivery and restaurant delivery, but they either had no delivery at all in their area, or they had a very limited offer available, so just only your local restaurant delivers to your home, but the restaurant that is 1 hour drive away, they just don't deliver to your home. And DoorDash, they found this problem, this gap between people who want delivery and restaurants who do not deliver, and they provided, they called them dashers, their own delivery men to those restaurants to bridge that gap. And the segment they were working on was the underserved segment. And the question is, in the existing market that you know for sure exists, is there a segment that is underserved, that has a problem, but nobody is serving that problem? And this segment with the problem, like the people who are outside of scope of that delivery, are the segment you might be working on. In our hypothetical AI assistant example, there are segments where OpenAI models are not good enough yet, but with every new edition of the model, they are just killing a ton of startups who fell into that pitfall of solving the problem that is on the way to be solved by OpenAI. Not to fall into that trap is to find that underserved segment that is potentially not to be solved by OpenAI, most likely because it's too specific. So it should be either something very industry specific and precision sensitive, like legal or medical information, or it should be something which requires human validation, like psychology, like maybe personalized sales, like maybe customer and business intelligence in terms of relationship building. OpenAI is still a generalized solution, and their baseline quality is gonna go up with every model, but they might not go into each specific detailed domain. For your new business, be it an AI assistant or not, your solution is to Find that underserved market with a pressing problem, with an opportunity to pay, shorter and more available feedback, great communication between your company and your segment, and ideally with the potential for viral jobs. That would be all my 10 advice in one. And if you are interested in market research roles, please watch the next video.